back to my channel. This is my third attempt to film this video, so hopefully it works out for me. And there is a train driving by at the moment, so please ignore those train whistles. So several of you have requested that I do an Excel tips for accountants video, Excel for auditors, something along those lines. I'm a state auditor with Tennessee, and I've been in my role for 2.5 years now. And Excel is definitely a foundation of an accountant, but don't stress too hard if you're not as familiar with Excel, or if you're nervous or intimidated about it. I was too when I was a college student. I didn't think I'd had the expertise. I didn't know if I could put proficient in Excel on my resume. But as you take on an internship or you start out in your career, you will learn Microsoft Excel so quickly. You're gonna use it every single day on the job. You're gonna get very, very familiar with it. You'll be very comfortable, and you will prefer to use Excel in your personal life for various things. So anyways, I don't wanna ramble on too much, but yes, welcome aboard to this video. You won't have to stare at this too much longer. We're gonna be doing some screen sharing, so here we go. So when you open up Excel, the first thing you'll see is all these different tabs at the bottom. When you first start, it will say sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and then you can add additional sheets with this. I already have some labeled here, and I'm not going to show everything from the basic ground up in Excel because I'm just going to assume that a lot of you as accounting people probably have some sort of foundation in Excel already. So I just downloaded some random data off the internet. I would not recommend it. You can get viruses, but for the purpose of this video, here we have order date, region, I guess the representative, sales rep probably, item that they sold, the units they sold, unit cost, and then the total. So the first thing I do anytime I import data or have data for any purpose at all is I change the font. I'm just really picky OCD about my font, plus my workplace requires Times New Roman 12 and every single thing we do. You can also go to File, Options, and then you can change your default font. So I have size 11 Times New Roman. However, that hardly ever works for whatever reason. That's a problem that Microsoft needs to figure itself out. So we have some titles here. I'm going to bold and center them. They should already be centered. Another little tidbit, if you highlight all of the columns of your data and you double click these in the middle, it will automatically size up the cell to the size that fits all of the data beneath it. And since it looks like what we have here, this is not a formula. As you see up here, it is just 189.05, but we want to make sure that this amount actually is 189.05. So I'm going to hit equals the amount of units and then multiply by the unit cost to get our actual total. And it went ahead and flash filled it, but we're not going to do that. That's advanced stuff. But usually it's not going to go ahead and do that for you. If you drag this all the way down with your left clicker, it will copy that formula all the way down. And you can always double check any formula by clicking up here, and it will highlight the boxes that it's actually multiplying. Since these are the same and it looks like they actually calculate everything correctly, I'm going to get rid of this. You can delete the entire column. Also use Control Z for undo, or you have the undo button here. But I'm just going to hide it, because that's another thing I can show you guys. You can hide any cell. As you'll see, there is no H. D, E, F, G, where's H? You have to highlight these, you can click unhide, and there it is. On any Microsoft product, and if you hold down Control F, I think it's Command F if you're using a Mac, you can find anything on the entire workbook or worksheet. So right now I'm in a worksheet. If I type in West, if I look for it, it's gonna show me that one, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Let's say you mistyped a couple of these. If you like hand keyed them in or something, you can do Control F. Now the problem with this is if you don't know you mistyped it, you're not gonna be able to look for the WOST, but you can replace all of these by typing in West. I think we want capital. Let's see, replace all. And there were 2 replacements. So that's just a cool thing you can do. You can do that on a Word document as well. If we want to look at this sales table, and let's say we want to look at everything that's sold over $100, this is a thing you'll do as an auditor often. You can highlight anything that's over, say, $100, which looks like most things are over 100. And if you were doing a variance, you could do -100. We don't want this highlighted because that looks silly, so we can just hit clear rules from selected cell. Another thing that may help you guys with tables or data is freezing a few things. Let's say we scroll down and we forget what central is. Is that somebody's name? Is that a region? So if we go underneath what we want frozen and we go to view, we want to freeze panes. You can freeze the top row, which this actually works because we are in row 1. But usually in data that I'll do, if we just, mine usually will start a few rows later because I'll have a header up here of whatever audit I'm on or what work paper I'm on. So in this case, we still go underneath here. we hit view, freeze, panes. And if you wanted to keep this date here, then we can put it right here and freeze, and then it'll keep it from left to right until we keep moving right. You see that left column is still frozen. Another thing you can do is you can sort data. If you highlight all the cells you want to sort, I believe this is in data. Oh, we actually need to highlight the actual data itself manually, and we want to sort it. Let's say we want to sort by region, A to Z. Then we have all the central region, all the east and west. I'll show you guys quickly here how you can create a pivot table, which is super helpful as an accountant. If you highlight all the data you're wishing to create, if you don't know what a pivot table is, it may blow your mind here in a minute, because it did mine when I learned about it. If we go to insert, so we highlight the data that we want to branch out into a more reasonable way to read it. This is the data we're wanting to work with, and we're going to actually have it open up in a new worksheet. You can put it right beside the data, but this will be easier for us to see. So you don't see anything else right now, but let's say we want to look at the different rows, and let's just say we want to know how many units per region. So then that popped out really quick. You can look up the total revenue. So this will show you how many units were sold in each region, and then the revenue that came from that. Also, this is going to be a whole lot easier to read if we do it in the accounting format. If you want to do dollars as well, then you can go down, well actually it was already on there, $sign. But that put the $sign, which kind of gets annoying when you have a lot. And if you're mostly dealing with money all the time, I would just use the comma. But we're using units and then $sign, so we may want to do $signs here. Whichever way you guys want to deal with. So that's a pivot table, and you can mess around, play with it, whatever you guys want to do. If we wanted to look up the different reps to see who's actually selling the most, and we look up how many units each person sold, and then in total how much they sold, that would go underneath here. So you can mess around with it. Pivot tables are super, super helpful. You can also decide if you want just Howard. Let's see what he's doing, and you can just pull up Howard. This is easy to customize if you're sending this to somebody to show them data really quick. Let's unhide this column where we actually had the formula, because since this is a formula, and you know it's a formula because it has an equal sign up here, this is not a formula because it's just a hard keyed in number. If you were to copy this data and paste it somewhere else, see how it all disappeared? That's because it's using its own formula that it thinks that you want. That's not going to be helpful, obviously. So what you're going to want to do if you copy that data is to right click and paste as values. Now this is essentially the same exact thing as column G here, since they're hard values. Let me go ahead and tell you guys, when you send data to a colleague, to a client, to your boss, somewhere along the line, somebody's going to break the formula, especially if they're attached to several worksheets. There's going to be a bunch of hashtags on your sheet, and somebody's going to get really irritated. So try to paste as values in any case that you don't need to see the formula. Also, let's say that we sorted all of this data by item. So data sort, instead of region, let's do it by item. Now we have binders, and we could do a pivot table, that'd be a lot easier, but if we just want to do it this way, so we take all the binders, let's say we want to look at the total, we can do a little underline here. We can auto sum. It's going to go ahead and predict what it thinks you want to be summed. And we don't need the conditional formatting for that. I would probably bold this, maybe put a box around it, something to show that this is a total. Also, just a personal preference of mine, when I do totals, sometimes I will do them off of the chart. We don't need this. That way, when I'm all done totaling up every single thing, I can make sure that this column actually totals out to the same as this column to make sure I didn't miss anything. That probably doesn't make any sense. Let me do this really quick. And I'm gonna auto sum and choose this little column, hit enter, bold, control B, outside boxes. A pivot table literally does this all automatically. So we have totals on the outside and we have the totals in the actual column. So if I highlight this whole column, if you look down here on your bottom Excel sheet here, it'll show you how many items that are highlighted and the actual total, which it looks like 19,627. If I highlight this column, you can see it's also 19,627, which means I didn't miss one, because let's say that I forgot to do this total and I highlight this column, we have 17,000. If you look over here, we have 19,000. So obviously I missed a total somewhere. We know it's this one. All right, so moving on over to our assets here. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and move this to Times New Roman 12. My computer is running really slow. All right, so we have, I just ran through random assets for an example here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the comma so we can see that this is money. This is 2019, 2018. So we're gonna compare year to year. This is something you'll do all the time as an auditor, to look for weird variances if something changed a lot. I'm gonna get rid of these columns. I don't think we need them. Oh, another little tidbit of information. Let's say I insert this column here and we want to move everything over here. Since current assets and non-current assets are a category, we can bring this over to say here, and then it kind of looks like a little header. So let's go ahead and drop some totals in here. If you hold down multiple cells and hold the control key, you can underline all at once. I think this will work too for auto sum. Yep, it did really quick. You can always double check clicking the formula. So we have totals here. So total assets, we can manually include both of these for each year. I'm actually going to drag this across so it'll copy it there, get rid of the one in the middle. All right, so let's say we want to know the dollar change and percent change. So we want to look at 2019 minus 2018. So it looks like it increased 5,000. If that looks correct, you can copy that down. As for a percent change, we are going to take the change divided by the prior year, whoa, which will be 2018. So it went up 12.5%. We can copy that down. And then we can do the little percentage fancy thing. You can increase it out however much you want to look at. And definitely do some logical thinking on making sure you did that formula right. So here for accounts receivable, it went from 75,000 to 150. It went up 100%, meaning that it doubled. So did it double? Yes, it did. Okay, good, moving on. I'm gonna actually copy this formula down here just to save some time. So let's say for our audit work, we need explanations from the client for anything that went over $40,000 and 10%. So first I'm gonna highlight everything here and do 40,000, highlight greater than 40,000 and less than, which you can probably do with one button, but I'm just gonna do this quicker. So it's gonna highlight everything that is above or below 40,000 equal to 40,000. All right, so it isn't, oh, negative. Negative 40,000 is different than 40,000. Sorry about this, guys. Anyway, and then anything over or less than 10%. Negative 10%. So that's literally everything except for PP&E, which didn't change much at all. This really bugs me. I'm just gonna get rid of that. So anything that's both. So here we need an explanation, and here and here. I just hit control to highlight both of those. That highlight is so yellow, it's really stressing me out. So let's say we send this to the client, they send us back saying, oh, we hired a new investment firm that suggested we invest in more medical companies, and as shown on NASDAQ, medical companies have skyrocketed in 2019. Okay, that's probably a very poor explanation. As you can see, I'm just spitballing here for you guys. Very poor explanation indeed, considering 2019 has less investments than 2018, not more. Ignore that. I wasn't paying attention. Let's say for accounts receivable, they say we extended our credit policy to increase sales for fiscal year 19. And this is the total, so we don't need an explanation here. I don't know why I put that there. So now you have a really weird looking explanation that just keeps on going. So what I would do is probably just extend 8 out really big. You can wrap the text. You can make sure that it's merged and centered. Oh, it doesn't look like we have all of it. So you can do that for both if you like. What I personally would do in my actual work paper, probably go ahead and move inventory like way down here. We don't need that. And then I would actually probably take a couple cells here. Ooh. Like let's say this big, merge text, move it all to the top left. Looks like we don't even need that much. We just need these 3. And then you don't need these. So then you can delete these rows. Oh, not all of it. Whoa, having to get ahead of yourself, girl. That's probably what I would do in my actual work paper. And then since this one is pretty short, I'm pretty sure we can move it, merge center, move it to the left. And we don't need to highlight anymore because since we got the explanation from the client. You can put a little pretty box around it if it makes you feel better. So over here on this revenue accounts sheet, I literally just copied and pasted, threw up random revenue accounts on this sheet to show you guys when you look at a chart of accounts for a client, you may have literal thousands of accounts that you're trying to look through or get total or whatever. First thing I'm gonna do is format it really quick. I want both of these to be the commas, but I don't want these two to be commas. We're gonna move those back to general. We're gonna copy these. This is supposed to be money. This is the amount of revenue for 2019, this is the amount for 2018, and this is the exact account number, which this is probably sort of realistic because, I mean, there may be random letters in there, but let's say we wanna sort them, but we can't because there's an H in the way. So if you move this column over by hitting insert, it's gonna insert a column in front of where you're going. If you insert a row, it's gonna insert right above. Control Z will undo that. But yeah, let's say we wanna move this over and we wanna divide this account up to where the H just drops off. We don't care about the H, we know they're all H's. H's mean revenue for this company. So I'm gonna move that out of the way. We're gonna highlight this whole cell, go to data, this whole column I mean, and go to text to columns. And we're going to drop a little, oh, go back, fixed width. Go back and drop a little divider right there after the H, and you wanna make sure there's nothing real weird about it. So go all the way down, make sure all your data looks okay. Hit finish, and then it just moved all of that data over to this column. We can get rid of this H, you can hide it if you want. So let's say we expect 2020 to increase by 6.45%. The first thing I would do is recreate this to put 1.0645%. Take 2019, you're gonna multiply it by 106%. If you copy this all the way down, you'll notice these are all zeros, and that is because it's copying all of these. So what we're actually gonna do is put a $sign before the F and after the F. That is going to lock in this formula as being an absolute reference. As you copy it down, you'll notice it's now copying every single cell as F5. From the multipliers sheet. But that means it's gonna copy every single time this F6. Also just a quick little tidbit for accounting. Anytime you have a grand total, so like total assets here, you're gonna wanna double underline it. That's just an accounting rule of thumb. So you want a bottom double border. In auditing, you would have a tick mark here saying this is footed, meaning that you actually calculated this to make sure this is the real total. Also a real quick tidbit about printing. Let's say we wanna print this information, we want it to all fit on one sheet. If you click down here at page layout, it's going to show you that you have this information on one sheet, this information on another. So we're trying to fit it all into one sheet to print it out for whatever reason. I would probably hide a lot of the cells that you're not really using. You can obviously make them smaller if you want to as well. You can change the font really small if you think that'll help it, if you're just trying to print it really quick. We see this little dotted line, that's where our page is broken. We can insert a couple rows here. This kind of can get complicated. There's probably an easier way to do it. If we merge and center it there on the left, now it looks funny with the box. We can undo the box, re-put on the box. Oh, and this disappeared. There we go. Okay, so will this all fit on one sheet? If you go to File, Print, or Control P, you can definitely see what you're about to print. So page 1 of 1, it all fits on one sheet. Now this was very poorly done, as you just saw. It doesn't really look super professional. This would be if I'm printing off for myself or giving it to somebody really quick. Also, a big tip in accounting, in Excel, in most cases you are not trying to make your worksheet really pretty. That wastes time, it's very inefficient. And most of the things you work on are probably gonna be internal anyways, so just a blank Times New Roman, no pretty colors, no good headings, no different fonts. Keep it as simple as possible. Now if you're printing out something for the client or you're doing something for some reason to make it pretty, then definitely spend the time to make it pretty. Also really quick, let's say just for our example, we're gonna add up a bunch of random things that make no sense, but we're just gonna do it. Okay, so I have this random total here, which is stupid in Calibri, I can tell, because I'm super OCD about it. So if we click on this cell, you can see they're all highlighted, but let's say we're losing count, there's like 30 different things in there. We wanna know where they're all coming from. If we go to the Formulas tab and we click Trace Precedence, it will show you exactly which cells make up this total. and that will stay on there for as long as you have it on there until you click remove arrows. So those are my main Excel tips and tricks. It's nothing too advanced. I wanted this video to be more of a ground level. I do plan to do another Excel video where I can use formula functions, sum ifs, VLOOKUPs that are super helpful in accounting. I did show you a brief pivot table, but pivot tables can get really complex. You can do a pivot chart, and all of that stuff is so fun to use as an accountant, but I want to do a whole separate video where I'm able to take the time to show you the more complex functions. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. So hopefully you guys learned at least something. I know it's pretty basic, but every single accountant out in the field has a different level of Excel. No two people know the same things in Excel. You never really know what somebody else knows in Excel until it is exposed that they don't know it. And I think everyone has an ego that doesn't want to admit that they don't know how to do something, or that there's a quicker way to do something. And I'm sure a lot of people will comment below on this video and tell me that there are quicker ways to do the things that I did for this video, and they'll probably make fun of me, and that's totally fine. I accept it. I am not an Excel master. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.